that's really what precipitated it. I said yes in complete absence of proof. And by the way, fear. I was so scared first. When I pressed send on that book for it to be edited, I shook for an hour. Like every part of me shook. And yet here I had survived a serial killer because there were children that were never found. But you know, the truth is, unless we step up, we can't change anything.
Welcome back to another episode of the Succeed Against the Odds show. Today I am in Victoria, British Columbia, and I have the privilege to have here as my guest, Jo Dibblee. Jo is an example, a true living example of what succeeding against the odds really means. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I'm honored. It's important that we share our stories, and so I'm honored to be here with you and share anything that would benefit our audience, our collective audience.
Our collective audience,
because
for sure.
We're all here to make a difference, really. So.
And the thing about you, Jo, is that you don't have just one story. A lot of us have one major story. Mm-hmm. And when I look at your life, there is a series of stories that each one on its own is overwhelming. Yeah. And to look at you where you are now, as a strong, powerful, inspiring woman making incredible changes in other people's lives, it's just pure joy to witness, to see that, and testimony that we don't have to be stuck in our story. And I've heard you talk about stand on your story. So for the people who are following this episode that may not be familiar with who you are, would you mind sharing a little bit about, just give a little quick run through of who Jo Dibblee is?
Absolutely. Well, thank you first. We all have our story. We've talked about this before. We have stories, and oftentimes we measure our story to somebody else's story, which, if you're watching this, don't do that. Don't measure against someone else's story. And you know this yourself, because each of us has something that we've overcome. And that is why what you're doing is so important. It's a little bit about me. I was born into a situation where my parents were completely unwell. My father engaged my mother in prostitution. I am the byproduct. In the mini series of series, that's where it starts, okay? So I started out there, and there's a lot of shame and judgment and fear. My own judgment, not other people's. If they judged me, I didn't even know, because they didn't know my story anyway. But I set up parameters that said, if they knew this, then this. Shortly thereafter, well, let's fast forward 12 years, I end up, the social services system gets engaged in our family to try and help, because it just was going off the rails, and end up a couple of years later meeting a foster parent who sadly assaulted me. I was lucky and lived and got away, but he murdered a little girl I knew, and I became a witness, the only sole witness against him. And I would stay in witness protection for 35 years. And what does that mean? It's not like TV. It's not like what you see, not this type of a crime. It's not mafia. So witness protection means if there's what's called chatter, you're on the move. So I lived in a lot of fear, and that's kind of the middle of my mini series. I don't know if it's a mini, but I definitely have had some series, but we all have. There's not one person out there that has come through this covered in roses. Life is not meant to be difficult all the time, but it is also not meant to be easy all the time. And we're going to have situations. I believe we have a choice. I believe that we decide we're either committed to living full on, or we're simply interested. And if we're interested, every time an obstacle hits us, it hits us square on. So when we talk, earlier you said stand on. So when I wrote the book, Frock-Off, Living Undisguised, that's my memoir, I wrote that so that I could stand on my story, not in it anymore. Because for 35 years, I was in it. So you think of, when you're a kid, you have rubber boots on, you get stuck in the mud. That's where I was. I now stand on top of that and help women. But it took a long time. I'd love to tell you it was an overnight success. No such thing, by the way. But that's what happened. So standing on your story is using what happened to you, or what's taking place in your life, to move you forward and to help others, because I believe we have a responsibility to help other people and leave them in a better place than when we met them. Somehow do something that changes, that interaction, create a conversation like we're having, not talk about the weather. You can see outside just as well as me. So, that type of thing. So standing on your story is taking a firm stance and saying, this doesn't define me. It's just what happened, and using the gems within that story. Now, if you were to say, most people would say to me, well, Jo, what gems came out of you being assaulted? What gems came out of Susan's death? What gems came out of what happened with your mom? What, those things? Believe me when I tell you, for me, there are gems. There were things that would not have happened had those things not happened. As much as Susan's death is still very hard for me, because it will always be. I carry her picture in my wallet. The reality is that there is something in each of our stories that will help propel us to the next place.
So if you don't mind me going a little deep in your story, and if you're not comfortable, please say so, because I know it is quite the story. So you said you're a byproduct of prostitution, which that in itself can be
deal breaker.
Well,
it definitely was hard
like
to
you said,
swallow.
You deal with this shame, thinking, what are people going to think? They're going to judge me. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe your dad committed suicide.
He did.
And you found him?
I didn't find him, but we knew he was a quarter of a mile from our house. My dad had tried, though, several times. So there was the 2 times before I found him, and we were able to save him with hospital intervention. But the last time, he left while I went to get school supplies, and I was, that there's times in your life where you go, what if? I couldn't have stopped my father from taking his life for nothing. But at 17, I thought I could have, right? And I thought, if only I'd been there, I would have. And for years I thought that. I would question myself, right?
So you have that. So you are going back. So
another series.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. You had so many stories. Byproduct prostitution. Your dad committed suicide. You felt you could have prevented that at 17. Had you done this or had you done that, maybe you could have prevented the whole thing. You were assaulted. Your friend got murdered. And then you were on the run pretty much as a witness. How do you go from, because I'm sure, like you said, it wasn't easy and it was not something, as you're going through each one of those challenges, what was it like, and at what point was it the turning point where you just said, I'm not standing in my story, I'm not in my story, I'm on my story? What switched? Was this something that just happened each time? Like, did it happen more than once because you have more than one story? Or was it slowly you came to that realization? Was it after the whole witness thing was over? When did it happen?
There was a definite transition, what I call my demarcation date, on February 28th, 2007 at 7 p.m. So I clearly know that. So can I say that there weren't moments where I was so sick and tired of being afraid, or, what if he found me? Because the person that assaulted me was also the murderer. And he said, I will finish the job. And I knew he was not exaggerating, especially after he killed Susan, because she was one of his victims.
He also tried to abduct your daughter, right?
Yeah, he tried to abduct Chantal. I believe that wholeheartedly. The police, when they came to me, what Chantal said to me was, there was too much coincidence, because of course, for someone who's been assaulted and who's been stalked and who's been, lived in that fear, the automatic response when someone tries to take your child is it's him. And in fact, the things that she told me and the things that the police discovered, again, reinforced he had tried. He never served any time. So he was always out. And what I would do is whenever there was chatter, we moved. We just moved. And
what's chatter?
Chatter meant that he might know where I am, and I would get a call from the police saying there's chatter. that meant go. It's not like, again, as I said, it's not like what you see on TV where they come in and they whisk you away and you have a new, no, 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 not this kind of crime. That's for capital murder. It's different, right? It's a very different process. But the demarcation day for me was February 28th, 2007. And the reason it was is I was going through another divorce. And I say another because it was my second. And I was walking with my girlfriend and she said to me, Jo, if you could do one thing different with your life, you know, with everything, what would it be? And the term Frock-Off, I had known for a long time. And for those of you not familiar with frock, it's simply it's like a mask or a costume that we don to cover or protect ourselves. If you think of clergy, they wear a frock, a judge wears a frock. So it's kind of it's a coating. Now, I had a very different version of frock. My frock was armor. It was covered head to toe. All there was my face and my hands and feet sticking out from it. But in this regard, on this night, I just thought, if I could stop hiding, stop being afraid, stop being, stop running. And at this point now, remember, what happened to me happened when I was 15. So by then, I'm in my late 40s and I'm thinking, bring it on. You didn't get me yet. I don't care anymore. But yet I still didn't tell. But it was my first step at moving that needle and saying, I'm done. I am done. Because the second divorce, I'd been married 20 years. Well, sorry, 16 and 20 we were together. And it was a hard thing. And so it's a divorce. That's kind of a common thing. But that, I'm not saying it's a good thing, but it can derail us. And it was hard for me to swallow. And I thought, I wasn't honest in my marriage. I wasn't allowed to tell people I was married to that I had this past. Well, how does that bode for marriage? Hi, honey, the police are here. They're looking for somebody else. That's me too. Didn't work out well. So I really just wanted to stop. And that was my demarcation. Had it happened prior, had I had moments? Yes, but not like that. And truthfully, how I got through everything was my belief there was something better. I had complete optimism in spite of having any proof that there was anything to be optimistic about.
And that's the key.
It is.
And that's the key. That's why I was asking you that. Like, how do you make that switch? And I think it's because you had that underlying belief all along, not knowing what that was going to bring to, but you knew there was something better eventually.
I did, and I often tell people to say yes in the absence of proof. And that is scary. That's scary to do. When I had to keep moving, I moved because it was scary. I couldn't stay put, right? I had to go. If I didn't go, then he would for sure know where I am. And look what happened. How close a call. He tried to pull her into the van. It was a very scary situation. And I never knew. And my kids did not know. I did not tell them. It wasn't until they were grown. I had gone through my second divorce. It wasn't until I wrote the manuscript that I told my kids the truth. And it was because it wasn't their job to take care of me. It was my job to take care of them as best I could in light of the situation.
So what was their reaction when you told them?
Oh, well, Josh thought I was transient. And in the book, his name is Eli. And Chantal she was blown away. She had no understanding. She had complete compassion, but no understanding this had happened. Josh was more, this makes more sense, Mom. And Chantal was, I don't know how I didn't know this. And that's understandable. I'm their mother. And I lived a double life, essentially. So I wasn't just living a double life outside the house. I was living it in the house, too. But in the house, I was still their mom. I was their mom 100%. And I would have done anything to keep them safe. And I did do anything to keep them safe.
You had how many identities?
Total 19 names.
19 names. That's incredible.
It's a little hard to remember them all. And, my biggest fear is I would meet, like, say you and I knew each other. And maybe we were neighbors and we became really good friends. And then one day you go to work, so to speak, or you go out, or you go away for the weekend, and you come home and I'd be gone. There was no goodbye, nothing. So I always had a fear I was going to run into people at some point that knew me as one of those names. And it's happened more so since the book came out, because now it's more public, if that makes sense. But oh my goodness. And having to remember every backstory that you make up for yourself, it's awful because you're lying all the time.
And hiding for 35 years. And the reason for that is because he got away. So even
He
though
never,
he was...
yeah, he never ever served. The problem with sexual assault or sexual assault leading to murder is it's a he said, she said crime. And the challenge would be this. If I did, in fact, I reported him, but because I was a disenfranchised kid from a very dysfunctional family, they thought I was lying to get attention. This isn't about blaming or finger wagging or pointing at anyone, because quite honestly, I wouldn't have needed foster care if I had a home life that was safe. I don't fault my parents. My mom came from absolute horror. My dad was, my dad was bipolar and had his own, he had severe issues plus PTSD from World War II. So really, this was a perfect storm of awful coming together and bringing kids into the world. So, I mean, how can you point to one particular thing to really say, well, this is how it should be, right? But in the end, I think the difference is you take what you can out of that story and you move forward. Does that make sense? Whereas if I stayed in that story, then I would be a victim. And I'm not a victim. I was victimized. I got out. There are women. There were 26 other women like me. I don't know where those women are. I was told by the police several times those women never made it out. That doesn't mean they didn't. Those 26 were not murdered. That means they either turned to prostitution, things like that themselves.
Major depression, possibly.
Yeah, and substance abuse, things like that. And how sad is that? How many lives is that? How many people never lived their fullest potential, never succeeded against the odds when reality says we all deserve that? And that was also a piece for me. I was like, I'm just tired. I'm going to stand up.
What would you say to someone who's listening to this and maybe going through some really tough time, their own story, living their own story, being in their story right now? What could you say to them? Because you've been in a lot of your own stories that have been pretty, I don't even know what the word would be.
Some of them would be traumatic.
Let's just say pretty heavy.
Yeah.
Let's just say heavy. What would you say to them to help them see the positive that they can't see right now?
First and foremost, look around. There are people in your life right now, some you don't even realize. There were angels, that's what I call them. I call them earth angels that showed up in my life. Someone tried to adopt me at 18. Who adopts an 18-year-old, right? But somebody raised their hand. So be open and be on the lookout. And I know how hard it is when you're in what I call the sad soup or the horrible story or the, there's no nice words. I'm going to tell you it sucks, okay? That's very profound, isn't it? Isn't that profound?
It's very profound because you know what? If you hear from someone else that is acknowledging how sucky it is right now,
it is.
If you're going through a sucky time, we've all been there. Totally. When sometimes we just feel like this sucks and it only happens to me. Why me? Why me?
Yeah.
But the reality is, it's not just me. It's all of us. We all go through those sucky times.
We do.
So hearing it from someone else who's been through the sucky times and acknowledging, yes, you're going through a sucky time right now. Yeah,
and it happens. It's not meant to all be roses. I think the reason I enjoy life so much now, why when I went from being a secret to a success on an international level, for two reasons. One, I know what the other side looked like. It was awful. It was horrible. So I get you. If you are in a bad situation, number one, know that it doesn't define us. You know that. I know that. What happened in the past is the past. It's one chapter in our story. And it sounds cliche, but you have the ability to write a different ending. Acknowledge what's going on. Just don't get stuck in it. Don't, allow yourself to grieve. If it's, let's just use divorce because it's an easy one. Sadly, it's very common. So you got to grieve. A death of a marriage is still a death. Doesn't matter if it wasn't working out. It's still a death. You still have to deal. It's all those future opportunity things that we tell ourselves and all those fairy tale things that we tell ourselves, which half the time, clearly, if you're not with that person, it wasn't working out. But also to know there's so much richness waiting on the other side of that story, because when you are vulnerable, like we're being and we're telling, we allow other people to open up as well. And so to stay positive, to know, and to, even if it's just a glimmer of hope that there's something else there, don't let someone else control your dreams. Don't let someone else tell you it's not logical. If you were to have told me 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I would be sitting just here, living on the island, speaking internationally, being an author, oh, did I tell you we're getting awarded again for the book down in Miami?
Congratulations.
I know. I don't carry the book and I don't carry the medal, but I should, because it's a big piece of bling. If you were to have told me,
it's like Reader's Choice.
Yeah, Reader's Favorites, number 3 in the world for true crime, again, 4 years in a row. Movie options I've walked away from. If you were to have told me, anyone would have told me. So think of it this way. What we're telling you right now is it's possible. You don't even realize how impactful and powerful you are, because when we're in that sad soup, right? How do we look beyond?
It's hard,
right?
It's hard. Really hard. It's
so
really hard.
Just one step at a time, right? I think back, that demarcation date for me, that was everything. Right now I'm 10 months. Sorry, I'm 3 years, 10 months, and what's the date today? The 26th?
25th.
25th. So I'm 3 years, 10 months, and 25 days old. What do I mean by that? Jo Dibblee, or Jo Dibblee is what I really go by, didn't exist before November 1st of 2013. So I'm coming up on my birthday. Y'all know it's my birthday soon. November 1st, Jo Dibblee. That's my name. Do wear it out. It's all good. But my point to that is, November 1st, 2013, I didn't know what would be happening right now. How can we never know that? And so don't give up. Don't give up. And just keep going. Because honestly, this is freaking awesome, or frocking, as I like to say. It's frocking awesome to be sitting here having this conversation and being that change I want to see in the world. It doesn't mean not everyone's going to tell their stories like we do, right?
Yeah.
But when we do, we have an opportunity. Or whatever your thing is, do your thing. And do your blessing. And do it well. And do it quick, as soon as you can. Get out of the soup. Get out of the soup, unless it's wonton. Anyway, I digress. I'm sorry.
Out of the sad soup.
The sad soup is not good. If you have other soup you like, go to that soup, okay?
Okay, so, and now you're a book author, a winning, obviously, like you said, like multiple times. And your business name is Frock-Off.
See?
That is the name.
Yes, that's correct. We're to Mexico soon. Can you tell? Yeah.
You're getting ready.
Yes.
And you also do events. Tell us about your events. I know they're quite spectacular. I know they're transformative. They're life-changing for the people that come. I know I was supposed to speak at one of your events, and unfortunately, for personal reasons, last minute, I wasn't able to make it. But then I saw all the videos in the group of all the people that had participated, and how transformed they were. So excited. And so just share with us about your events.
Well, thank you. When we first started, we just launched the book, right? And I thought, well, I'm going to launch this book, and then I'm going to speak on other people's stages, which I do. But I didn't anticipate doing our own events, because I thought, well, maybe it's too dark, right? Maybe it's too dark. So think about this. How freaking dark is it that I get to live the most amazing life ever? That's not dark, but that was me again, perceiving, right? So shortly after launching, people started saying, Jo, we want to, what about a live event? How about some live events? Okay, so we started doing these events, and the idea is to lead you from where you are to living what we affectionately call a Frock-alicious life. Now, what the heck does that mean? Because it's not even a word, right? But you know what delicious means. So, we've been talking about soup. Apparently, I'm thinking about food, because chocolate cookies are sounding really good right now. So now if you like chocolate cookies, those things are delicious. So we want you to live that life. And how we do that, or the vehicle that we use to help bring people to that, is we focus on your life. So what is it you dream of? What are you called to do? It's not what you're doing, maybe. If it is what you're doing and you love what you're doing, like what you do, then clearly you're living that life goal. Then we focus on what we call love. And what we mean by that is your relationships, both personal, interpersonal, business, any way that we interact in the world, how we show up, what we are like in the Starbucks lineup, what we're like in the grocery store lineup, how we show up in the world. Do we make it better for people, or are we just that gray cloud? Please don't do that. All right, then finally, we focus on your business or your career. Primarily, we work with women entrepreneurs. It's to help them move from being a secret to success, because the reality is we're all working really hard. So how do we become top of mind? And that's why we do a threefold event. So we break through any of those barriers you're having, whatever's holding you back, and move you. And there's an accountability piece. And when I tell you I'm bossy, that's an understatement, okay? And I own it. Because if you come to one of our events and we don't transform you, we failed. So there's a part that you have to do, and it's a contract that you sign. You don't get to leave the room until you sign your contract. And your contract states what you're going to do with the information. You and I have talked before about how important implementation is. So if they come to this transformation event and then they go back home and just do the dishes, well, there's a disconnect, right? So it's an accountability piece. But what I know to be true is the people that jump in and decide to be fully committed to their life, they're rocking it. Their transformation is amazing. All of them are soaring. So it's about accountability and reaction.
And commitment.
And commitment. And if you're not committed, like you said, it's pointless, really, because we can all be seminar junkies. What do we do with the information? How are we inspired to transform our lives? And again, I feel like a broken record, but I completely believe that we are here to serve others at the heart of who we are, like whatever that core message is that we have to bring to the table. Otherwise, we're just taking up space and taking up air, and don't do that, right? So bossy, sorry, Francesca.
There's nothing to be sorry about. You are who you are, and you own it.
Yes, that I do.
That's good. I don't see you as bossy.
Really?
Yeah.
We need to hang out more then.
Yeah.
Well, we just do anyway. I think, you know what, it's just an easy thing to say, maybe, but I really don't want people to spend their money and not get value. And worse, I don't want them to not move to the next level, because we all know people that are doing the same thing they did last year, some 5 years ago, some even 10, and they're still talking about, when or if. No, you've got to set a date in business or in your career. If we just use that, you've got to set a date and say, I'm all in. Is it scary? Oh, frick yeah, it's scary. It was scary though, telling people where I came from.
Yeah, and it's not always easy either, because that's the other thing. A lot of people think, oh, I will take this, I'll go to this conference, or I'll go to this seminar, it'll make it easier. Well, it may not make it easier. It will give you the information that you need to apply. And that's actually the harder part, is to actually the implementation. The committing is easy because it's here, but then actually to physically do it.
Well, it's true.
Right?
We get caught up in the moment, maybe, because let's say, we're listening to a speaker, because you and I have been to various conferences, and we're listening to someone and they're so engaging, and we're just like, oh my gosh, I got to do that. That is what's going to take me to the next level. So we buy into the enthusiasm, which is awesome, because that's what their job is, to help you understand that there's a chance to move you from here, that there's a way, there's a tool, there's a tip. However, when you get home and those dishes are still in the sink, or life is just life, okay?
We get distracted.
We get distracted and we don't fully commit. And I shared with you a little earlier that, before we started the interview, I decided, okay, here's a little hint. Do not buy all things at once, all technology pieces all at the same time. So in the last 5 days, here's what I've done. I got a new phone. Okay, it's an iPhone. I had an iPhone, should be easy. I didn't even know how to turn it off. Okay, so let's start there. Then I got some new technology. And then, wait. And then I upgraded my computer. Oh, and then I upgraded, well, that was my desktop. Then I did my laptop. And then I got this new program that you have to take your contacts. And I am not a neophyte. However, put that finger away. What happened is, I realized I didn't know how to do some of this stuff. I was so overwhelmed. I was like, oh my gosh, but I'm still doing it. Now, here's a testament to the truth of me. Sorry, the truth of me is when I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. I may have no hair left by the time I'm done this next couple of days trying to implement everything. But the truth is, I will not do something unless, like, I will not commit to something unless I'm willing to implement. And there are always going to be bugs. And you said something about, it's not easy. There's an old saying, for example, when you go out and you're connecting with people, it is not called net play, it's called network. The work is very important to remember because when you commit, you still got to do all the work, right? So I will tell you, don't do what I did and buy 5 or 6 new things all at once and try to implement them because that causes some extra gray. I'm sure that part of this gray is from these last 5 days.
Do you see these?
Right? It's like, what the hell? Right? So, but I think to enjoy the journey too and joke about it. Like, who does this? I know better than to buy 5 or 6 things all at the same time and try to implement them all before I do something else. But hey,
one thing at a time. Don't have to do it all at once. Change doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
It takes time. Like you said, success doesn't happen overnight.
No.
It's all of a sudden, it seems like we see people that, wow, they got successful. Yeah, well, they've been working in the background for the last 10, 15, 20 years. And now they're a success to everybody. But there's all that groundwork that people don't see.
No, they don't. And there's a standing joke about the overnight success being a 20-year journey, right? And I think about myself. I switched names on that day, November 1st in 2013, but nobody knew who I was. And I made a calculated, like, big miscalculation on this because a lot of people that knew me as my old name, which happened to be a simpler switch, was Joanne Basing to Jo Dibblee. Not a big deal, but if you ask your people, your tribe, can you help me with my book launch? You need to tell them your new name. They couldn't find me. So I made an error. Does that make sense? And so understanding that there's going to be hiccups, but that's okay. And to laugh about them because people were sending me emails going, where are you? We can't find you. Oh, by the way, I changed my name. I'd never told anyone I changed my name because it wasn't safe before. So those old habits, to be conscious of those old practices that we had, to be aware. I call them frocks, a frock of worth where I'm not worthy. I'm bloody worthy. So are you. So we are worthy. But until we say I'm worthy, it wouldn't matter if you tell me I'm worthy. Does that make sense? Because till the cows come home, you could say, oh, but Jo, and I'm going, yeah, but I don't feel it. I got to own it, right? So, the frock of worth, the frock of conformity, when we say yes, when we mean no, and the frock of expectations are 3 of the worst frocks there are. Expectations come from other people, by the way, like your family, those people that you're close to and you're afraid you'll disappoint them. And conformity is society. Now, the only time you should conform, by the way, is driving on the correct side of the road, whatever that is. The rest of the time, don't do it.
Keep the road safe, please.
Yeah. Destructive? No, nothing like that. Stay safe. Yeah.
Well, Jo, it's been amazing to have you here as my guest. So if people, I know that the book, all the proceeds go to
Little Warriors and Because I Am a Girl. So we donate. When I put the book out, I decided that put your money where your mouth is. And so any sales of the books, the proceeds are divided equally between Little Warriors, which is in Alberta, and Because I Am a Girl. So it's pretty cool, actually. My goal is to get to donating to each of those consistently because we have different things that we're doing as well with silent auctions, things like that, to consistently be able to donate $30,000 a year. And so, we're a new business. I told you the date, so we're brand new. But Frock-Off is, you can find us online, but we're Frock-Off for
so the book, that it can be found on your website?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we're going to make sure
Amazon.
We'll have the link and the notes, in the show notes. So make sure you go online, grab the book. But also your events are listed on your website as well. And you have them in different locations. They're not all in one place. Can you share that, where they are?
Thank you. We have events in various cities in Canada. So Western Canada would be Vancouver and Vancouver Island, in Parksville. And then we also have events in Alberta, in Ontario, in the Toronto area. In Alberta, it's Edmonton, Calgary, or Red Deer. And then right now we're also we're expanding into the US. We have Phoenix right now is on, and San Diego's up for one of the other events that we're going to be hosting. But our goal is to go global and help women entrepreneurs, because here's what I know, and I know you practice this. The saying, and I don't remember where it's from, but it's to whom much is given, much is expected. And so if we've risen, we are beholding to help another stand. And so if we can help women entrepreneurs, they're going to raise more funds to help women that don't have a voice, so that we can be that change. Because really, at the core of who I am, it's about the give back for me. Financially, we donate everything we make. The books are just one vehicle that we donate. We donate through membership, we donate through our live events, because I want to live my legacy. I don't want to be gone and people go, oh, wow, well, because I won't be able to hear them anyway, but you know what I mean? I want to be a living testament to what I preach.
So it creates a chain reaction versus just a one.
Exactly. So anything that we do is on the website, and the books are available. But that's really what precipitated it. I said yes in complete absence of proof. And by the way, fear. I was so scared when I pressed send on that book for it to be edited, I shook for an hour. Like every part of me shook. And yet here I had survived a serial killer, because there were children that were never found. But you know, the truth is, unless we step up, we can't change anything, whatever that thing is, right? So thank you so much for
thank you
having
for
me.
sharing all the difficult stories, not just one, but all of them.
The
Well, there's probably more, but these are the ones you're sharing with us. And I know that our audience is people that don't know you and just heard this. I'm sure they're blown away. I'm like, I got nothing to complain about now, because when you hear all that Jo's been going through, it's incredible. And now you're a successful businesswoman, you're a philanthropist, helping, preventing more of this stuff happening, and helping, the young ones. So thank you again for being here. I'm honored you were here, and please do reach out to Jo. Go to her website, follow her, go to her events, buy the book. It's all for a good cause. And that's it. That's it for now. So the link will be below, and until next time. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.